Hi everyone, my name is Carly and I am a reporter in Hagerstown, Maryland at a newspaper called the Herald Mail. Allison asked me to talk to you all a little bit about news media and newspapers here in America, and I'm very excited to be able to chat with you guys a little bit and tell you a little bit about what I do. The first topic that we're going to be talking about is some of the differences and similarities between American newspapers and other international newspapers and news media. Here in America, our newspapers and news media are very similar to ones overseas. They look a lot of the same, and the intent is to inform readers and viewers. So they serve the same purpose. They will look oftentimes very similar to a newspaper in Austria or a newspaper in the United Kingdom, Australia, all over the world. Newspapers are going to pretty much look the same. Content-wise, they're going to be the same with some minor differences. Some places might be able to post certain things that we are not allowed to in the United States. We try to be very professional and we try to be very informative, and some newspapers overseas can get away with it a little bit more than we can. International news affects the United States and American newspapers way more than I think people realize. The U.S. is very much involved and very much cares about things that go on overseas in other countries. For example, earlier this year when there were attacks in Paris, my newspaper did a story on it and localized the story. We tried to find people from Hagerstown, Maryland that were living in Paris and talk to them, and we also got reaction from people in this city about what they felt about the attacks in Paris. We do that often. In my opinion, the most important part of the creation of the newspaper is to keep people informed and hold people accountable. A big part of what we do is report on meetings and the government, because we want to keep people informed about what's happening and the decisions that are made that are going to affect them. We also want to keep people accountable to make sure that government and elected officials are telling the truth, are being honest, and are keeping the best interest of their citizens in mind as they go about performing their duties. Well, a lot of times older generations will read the newspapers. A lot of our news is online now on the computer, and it's very easy to access that way. We have a lot of older people who read our newspaper every day, and we're trying to connect with younger people. And so the way we do that is online and with social media. For example, Twitter and Facebook and videos. We're trying to connect with people in a lot of different ways, so they can get the news on their phones, they can get it on their computers, they can get it wherever. In my opinion, the most important part of the creation of the newspaper is to keep people informed and hold people accountable. A big part of what we do is report on meetings and the government, because we want to keep people informed about what's happening and the decisions that are made that are going to affect them. We also want to keep people accountable to make sure that government and elected officials are telling the truth, are being honest, and are keeping the best interest of their citizens in mind. An important thing to consider is the reliability of your news source. You want to make sure that there's no bias, it doesn't lean one way on the political spectrum. You want to find something that's fair, something that's balanced, and something that is going to report the entire truth. I think newspapers have changed in looks over time since they were first created here in the United States. Newspapers are smaller as it's more difficult to fill advertisements, which pays for the newspaper. So they've gotten smaller in size. All across the United States, newspapers are printing smaller editions, less pages in the newspaper. Newspapers have also, with the advent of technology and advancement of technology, newspapers have also changed in the way they look. They're no longer done on a typewriter. With everything being digital now, newspapers are done all digitally on computers. Content-wise, newspapers really have not changed. They have served one mission since they were created, and that's really to inform the public. There may have been minor changes, but for the most part, content is very much the same. I will say, though, that a big push for newspapers now is digital media. The website is a very important thing. Social media is very important, and that's going to look different. Back in the early 1960, they didn't have, the internet, or they didn't have social media, and so that really changed how newspapers did some of their content. They'll have web-only content now. There'll be slideshows, there'll be videos, and none of that was possible before the advent of social media and the internet. I think that reading the American newspapers could improve the language skills of speakers of other languages. I think that anytime you read anything that's written in English, it will help you get better at English and have a better grasp of the language. It helps you build a better vocabulary, and you're reading about current events, so you're also learning things that are happening around you. Then you're learning more about the culture too, which I think is vital when you learn a language. It's important to understand the culture, and reading the newspaper is the perfect way to do that. To write a typical story in a day, it usually takes me anywhere from 1 to about 3 hours or so. It depends on what I have to do. If I have to go out to an assignment to cover a meeting, meetings usually last 1 to 2 hours. And then it typically takes me about an hour to write a story. If I am doing a telephone interview, it might take me a little less, but anywhere from 1 to 3 hours is about average for me to write a story. Unless it's a much longer, in-depth story. A feature story is what those are called, where we take a closer look and we dig deeper into something. That's going to take a little longer. That can take anywhere from a full day to sometimes even a week, depending on how long or in-depth investigative piece you're doing. Being a young writer has definitely taught me a lot. I've learned a lot. I've had to learn a lot about government and how that works on a local scale. And I've also learned about policy and just different goings-ons of a community that I might not have gotten the experience to. Being a young writer, I've learned a lot, and I've made connections with people to learn about the court system, the legal system, processes like that I wouldn't otherwise have known being so young. I've learned a lot from my peers here who are older than me, my colleagues, who have taught me a lot, and that's been really beneficial. And I've learned about how communities are run, and I think that's really shaped me in my thinking and the way that I've learned how society functions and how really what it takes to run a city, a county, and a state in the United States. Being a young writer is also a lot of fun because I have a different perspective. I also am on social media more, and so I have a little bit better understanding of what's going on than some of my colleagues with the internet and social media, and I bring that fresh perspective to try to attract younger viewers, and that's something that I'm really passionate about as well. The best part about what I do is definitely getting out and getting to meet people. I love meeting new people and telling their stories. I think that's really, really powerful. I love talking to people in schools, at local governments, at events, at parades and picnics. I love getting to be out in the community and meeting people and learning about the awesome things that people are doing here in Hagerstown, Maryland, and what they're doing to improve this community. Thank you guys so much for letting me talk to you a little bit about American news media and newspapers. I really enjoyed it, and I hope that you've learned a lot, and I hope that I was able to give you a little glimpse into life of being a reporter. Enjoy the rest of your day.